and most members present and correct. I will declare the meeting open and ask Mr. CEO your record of attendance.
Yes, we have one apology this evening from Councillor O'Brien.
Okay, thank you. Councillor West did have a leave of absence, but it was an unsure leave of absence, so he's here. Good. Go through the processes. We have some members of in the gallery, but they're here to talk about a item and take questions possibly. Not necessarily public question time. All right, so I'll move along. Responses to previous questions taken on notice. Which I take it there are nil public questions, once again, not from the gallery that we have. Item 3, applications for leave of absence.
I should have checked. When's the August meeting? Is that after the 24th? Is that the last?
Quickly check.
Sorry.
No, good. The August council meeting is the 26th of August.
Yes, I'll be away.
You're asking for leave of absence?
Sure.
Okay. Councillor West, you leaving?
No, my July one still stands.
I think you said July and August at the last request.
No, just, it was June and July.
Oh, okay, quite right, yeah.
Yeah, so my July one still stands at this point, yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, Councillor Longmuir has requested leave of absence. Moving, Councillor Law. I have a second. Councillor Chilcott. Is there any dissent? I shall declare that carried. Item 4, petitions, deputations. I think at that moment we might just bring Scott forward to discuss that item on the agenda, councillors, which is, I can find it.
8.1.4 on page 70.
Thank you. 8.1.4, the water security strategy. I hope you've all read that document.
What page?
Page 130, hang on, 70, I'm sorry. Got cross-eyed trying to read that, on page 70. Quite an extensive strategy which I think has got some good value in it. Scott, do you want to just come to the front so councillors can see you perhaps, rather than sit around the back? If you want a quick overview for councillors and then questions.
Okay. Yeah, so...
Yes, Scott, do you want to take my big chair? Sure.
Whew, big shoes to fill if you're going to come and sit up here.
Okay, so there's a lot of uncertainty with future climate. The global climate models generally agree that the southwest is going to get drier, but how much drier we're not sure. There are multiple climate projections, and the 32 projections that are provided by BOM are the ones that I analysed. Yeah. So, I'm not really prepared for this.
No, that's okay. You've read the report, councillors, you've got an understanding. We might throw to decision, questions at least, or queries, and then might ease your way back to the document, Scott. So, Brian, Councillor Kilpatrick at least.
Yeah, a couple of questions, thank you. There's a bit of talk about the Janning Dam and having the water engineer to look at that, and there's probably two parts to that. One is how important is that, and likely that will be a good solution. And the runoff up there is, I think, 1 or 2%. So what are your thoughts about that? I mean, to me that seems like a low hanging fruit option. I'm not that I've been up there, but...
Yeah, I mean, the recommendation was to monitor it and investigate the dam wall to find out what the leak was about, because I suspect that was never fixed, assuming that information is correct from the heritage side. But if there is a lot of water coming in there and it's leaking out reasonably quickly, the then there might be more yield than the 1%. And so that's what the monitoring would hopefully show. But yeah, it's a climate-dependent water source. So it's not, you know, the runoff's going to get less in the future. And so, and the runoff is more sensitive than the groundwater system, which is something I pointed out in the report, because there's a bit of a buffer in the groundwater system, because there's so much storage in there. Yeah, a lot of the dams are going to drop away, and as it gets drier and drier, they're going to reduce more than the groundwater stuff. So if it does show a lot of runoff, or it, you know, because it's a big dam and there's a lot of water infrastructure there, if you can catch a lot of water, it might be worth fixing the dam wall and piping it in. Because the cost of the project's not astronomical either, it's pretty modest. And so, you know, if there is 10 or 20,000 kilolitres there, it's a meaningful supply of water, however long that lasts into the future. But yeah, I would advocate a bunch of monitoring before you even did anything on that.
And so when you're talking monitoring, how do you monitor for leaks and?
Well, I was just a site inspection to measure a water level, because there's a whole bunch of staff gauges up there. You can just read off a water level and have a look around and see, you know, what's going on with the water. And ideally, you go up there, you know, every other month and just check the water levels. Yeah, but I think a visual inspection would be the best way of doing it, to get a better understanding of what's going on up there. You just put a probe in or something, it'll give you a whole bunch of data, but you won't necessarily be able to interpret it. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on a liner? Have you had a look at that dam at all? Or
I haven't had a look at that dam. It's a very big dam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as you know, it's virtually just an earth wall, natural
Yep.
site.
Yep.
Is a liner a possibility for a site?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Councillor West?
Mr. President, through the chair, I'd like to ask the manager of works a question.
Sure.
Because in this report here, it's saying that your preferred option is the osmosis process. So the question to you, the manager of works, is we've already been pumping this water up to Unigrain to be desalinated, but we've run out of underground water. Am I correct in that over the last year, because it's been very, very dry?
About 2 years ago we did.
Beg pardon?
About 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's all back up there now. The pumps have been going pretty
Okay.
flat out. Yeah.
So yeah, so the point I'm trying to make here is if we're going down this osmosis process, we don't have the water to feed the plant that we had a couple of years ago. And I don't know what the water like level now, but we've had another dry year. And that's the only thing that is a concern to me, rather than the harvesting process, which we get plenty of and down there, and if we've got storage, we can pump it somewhere. That's the way that my thoughts are.
Yeah, look, I think that's a fair assessment. One of the simple questions, and you've got it there as your second item, is Vernon Street Weir expansion, and then you've also talked about whatever Upland Street you've named it, but this other creek essentially on my left, your right. There are those options, and the simple one, we've certainly discussed the Vernon Street. There's capacity to do that. I think that's absolutely the low-hanging fruit, in my thinking.
So I'm asking another question then.
Sure.
Councillor Kilpatrick was saying about the Jenny Dam up here, and is it worth spending a bit more money after this Punterman's fixed, because that's a huge supply. The pipe's already out there and it's already back again. And then we get Don.
You look at the Jennings Dam, it's going to cost a lot of money to get that back up, because all the catchment, what would you call them, waterways where it comes into it, they need fixing, they need clearing back, and the pipe from there, 5 kilometres down to the White Dam needs replacing. It's all the old earthenware and it leaks.
Yeah.
So you'd have to replace all that as well.
Yeah, hence the Jenny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a measure of which is the most effective, pretending probably isn't it in the short term.
Yeah,
But,
short
you know, if we go through all these other scenarios and still need the water, pretending's not out of the question.
Yeah. So the Vernon Street weir is an overflow for the town.
Yeah.
So there's a risk there that you're going to, the rainfall drops away, you're going to get less and less overflow. So I'm putting it forward as a short-term option.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think as the rainfall declines, roughly about 240 mils is my back of the envelope count. Once you get about 240 mils of rain, you don't get any overflow to that within a road. Weird. Okay? So it's a short-term option. It's an easy option to do, and so it's worth doing for that reason. But it's not. It's not. It's going to be less and less reliable as you go into the future.
Yeah.
The groundwater bores, the deeper, they looked at it was 2019, they reckon it went dry. But they looked at the water levels.
Doesn't it?
But there was no water levels recorded that year, which was a bit of a problem because there may have been other issues around cut-off valves, pumps or whatever that caused those bores to not produce any water. Looking at all the groundwater levels, there was no drop-off. So the following year when they did measure water levels, it was to where it should be. So there wasn't an extraordinary amount of water taken out that year, which would cause it to dry out either. So they're thinking it's more likely that it was like a mechanical operational issue rather than a lack of groundwater in that bore. But
Yeah, I'd actually suspect that we also have one wet winter, which recharged the catchment. And it took a couple of years for that to come back down again and effectively refill the landscape. I could be wrong. Councillor Baldwin, do you have a question?
Got a few. I guess in mulling over in the last couple of days, since the agenda come out, we need either, if we've got more supply, we need more storage. So the options, the short-term options of increasing the weir size really doesn't do anything for us because our storage is still the same. We need more storage basically, or we need a continuous supply that the seller would give us. The stopgap for the little bits, if we had enough storage so a wet year would give us a year and a half supply, then the water harvesting options would make sense to me then. But without spending another, I don't know, that's not part of the strategy, increasing our storage by 50%, we're really hemmed into desalination or bust really. Janning is worth monitoring, but I'd be thinking, with a little bit of background I've had in drilling and whatnot, of having a geological survey to see if we can find a paleo channel or a decent water supply that would give us whatever it might be that we see as a shortfall. I think we're talking 5 megalitres shortfall through your report, if I'm correct.
No, it was about 25.
About 25.
That's what I said you should plan to. So, I mean, and that's because a bunch of the projections sort of show that's around about what it would come out at. If the driest climates eventuate, then you got zero supply. Okay? So beyond 2050, if the driest climates eventuate, then you've got zero supply. So you're going to have to replace the whole lot. But that's why monitoring is so key, because you don't want to overinvest before you have to, or invest before you have to. So 20,000 is a modest amount to invest towards. But if the rainfall and the monitoring of your water supplies is showing that it's dropping away quickly, then you're going to have to move to contingency actions, which might be ramping up the desal, or even looking at the wastewater supply. Because you're going to have to find 80 or 90,000 kilolitres.
With the wastewater supply, is it possible to run that through a process? We can't make drinking water out of it, obviously.
No.
But
Well, you could. It'd be very expensive.
Yes. The cost of the able would be a bit absorbed there. But how costly is that as an option to tackle the wastewater? And that varies during the time of the year as well. Because we probably need to store that too.
Yeah, you would need to store it, yeah, because the overflow from the ponds in some regions lost. And that's kind of the only time you can directly use the water. And so if you're going to hold it, you'd have to build a line pond somewhere to hold the water. It's another 50,000 kilolitres. But yeah, so the quote I got was 2 to 3 million, but that was for a medium risk sort of Department of Health standard. That requires a lot of monitoring, obviously, and a much lower level of residual bacteria. there was some discussion with a few people about the fact that you might be able to get to a low level risk, simply because if you're using it on the oval, there's a bit of a buffer to any residents, and you can water at certain times and eliminate the risk of people coming in contact with it. And then that would reduce the monitoring and increase the residual bacteria quite a lot. So then you might be looking at half the price or something like that, maybe $1 million, but it's still a big investment either way. And I would suggest you want to have a lot of discussions with Water Corp about how much they can help you with that. Yeah.
Still the storage option
Yeah.
is its head.
A couple of other areas then, if I can. We pump a lot of water into reservoirs, and then we lose some of that through evaporation. I know there's been a little bit of work done about reducing evaporation. I don't know, I didn't see any data in there about the amount that we're losing, the efficiency of that, if you like, in your report. Did I miss that, or?
Well, no, you didn't. The graphs on the storage include evaporation.
Okay.
So, where are we?
Yeah, and look, I don't know how significant it is, but what have we got, 1, 2, 3, 4 dams, fair surface area when you think about it.
Yeah.
What our losses are, I'm not sure, but when we pump the water there at cost, it, if you like, amplifies it to some degree to me.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Anything you can do to reduce your evaporation. There's all kinds of plastic things that they advocate for putting over the top to try and hold the water in.
Yeah.
So if you want to look at those water efficiency measures, by all means.
You don't have a magic bullet in that space, so I guess as well.
No, when you've got a big surface area of water, the only way of holding it in there is to cover it. That's basically the bottom line.
Yeah.
We did cost that out last year, I think, which is horrendously expensive as it turned out. So,
Yeah,
just the
what's that,
surface
yeah.
area.
Yeah, so figure 16, all the water storage projections, that includes evaporation in that calculation.
That's it, okay. Yeah, okay, so that was one of the possibilities that I was looking at, and I also, like Councillor Ball, looked at what I'd call purchase suppliers around the community, around the town site. Essentially, I had a chat with the CEO about this, as to whether we could actually access some of that from the local farms within the area and pump that to it. One of our storages, or several of our storages even. It may be, I don't know how far we could push water, but I know we're pushing at 6 k's now.
6 k's, yeah.
When you think of that 6 k perimeter around our dam sites, what potential sand seam water supplies there might be within that distance. I guess that pumping is based on mains power to give it the horsepower, is that right?
Yeah.
Can you get that horsepower out of solar?
Don't know about that. Because we use ground frost pumps,
Yeah,
7.5 kilowatts.
yeah. Councillor West?
Talking about getting horsepower out of solar, then what you do, then you put solar panels down the works depot,
Yeah.
3 phase, and you can run, and you've got 3 panels.
Yeah, but I'm referring to if you put a bore field out, I know there's a fair sand seam up, due north of town. If you put a bore field out there, you've got to get power to drive that, to pump it somewhere. Within reason, it's almost would be above the 2 dams we have out there, so it's probably not, gravity's not the problem, it's just distance. And the reason I bring that up is my vague experience of reverse osmosis is it's a very expensive energy-wise process. So the other options might become more viable.
It is the comparison. That leads to my next question about what my little desal plant at home, when we first put it in, that it's in a spot where I couldn't get water to, so it cost me about the same as scheme water would have cost at the time. But those figures may have dramatically changed since. But I guess the argument against desal is if it's about the cost of scheme water, we'll use scheme water. So, but I'd be interested to see what those figures are. It may be a lot more efficient now. It's probably 25 years since I put my plant in.
Right.
Have you got a ballpark figure of what a kilowatt will cost to run kilowatt of
well,
water
it's-
through osmosis? I know it depends on the water quality and the.
Yeah, well, they're saying based on the water quality that we've got at the moment, the sample that was taken previously, and you're looking at about 60% recovery. They're saying about 9.5 kilowatts per hour to run that plant. Yeah, so that's 9 units by whatever, 30 cents. Yeah.
Okay,
Three
do the
bucks an
maths on
hour.
that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, anything further, Mr. CEO, you have any questions to raise?
I think there's been some commentary about the water storage potential, and you know, it's very soon obviously we'll be taking over Punterman Dam, and the storage capacity of that is going to be 75,000 whatever units of that is, and I know that when we were debating last year about whether to acquire that piece of infrastructure, one of the commentaries about was, well, where is the water going to come from to fill that dam up, because it would take 4 sort of wet years to fill it back up to those levels. And so, at least in the short term, I sort of would view Punterman as potentially the place where we would be storing this excess water. And if we get to the point that we have too much water, then potentially it's actually using Buchanan as a next phase of water storage.
Yeah, I mean, you've got about, with Punterman Dam, you've got about 160,000 kilolitres of storage, which is sort of double what you need in any given year. Yeah, so there's and it takes a while for these storages to fill up, and they're very, very, very full, so.
I think we're losing a fair amount with the remedial works that I thought was coming down to around about 80.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we would theoretically use part of Punterman's on the oval, for example, and then pump it back up. So it's one of those
Yeah.
exercises there.
That's right. And again, the evaporation, the losses, whatever they are, all contribute to the part of the problem, essentially. You can store a lot of water and not get to use all of it. Yeah, all right, look, I think to me, it's a good report because it focuses us to have to look at this. It's where we need it to be anyway, and look at our options and see how we expand upon them. I know Mr. CEO was telling me that DPERD are very keen on the osmosis idea. I think probably because it fits in well with the work that they've done on the town dewatering to begin with, so it kind of, you know, fits the next phase of that, if you like, and it makes a lot of sense.
They've done a few pilots around the place as well, and they're looking for a demonstration case.
Okay.
And so, you know, if it's in their science, and about progressing that technology further.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I know they've done that in Dumbleyong, one of our neighbours. How's that going, do you know?
Yes, it's working.
It's working.
It's not a huge flow rate, and they obviously had a lot of teething issues because it's a pilot, but they're working through them, and they would have done some of the design differently
Okay.
to get it to work better, but they're learning as they go.
Yeah, right. All right, any further questions, councillors?
Haven't quite got enough water to fill a swimming pool in Dumbleyong yet.
Just make one last comment. You've got a lot of surface water. You should use it as long as you've got it.
Yeah.
As long as it keeps raining, and even if it doesn't rain every year, when years that it rains, you want to use your surface water. And then you've got higher cost water, so your DO water and your wastewater, whatever other water you've got, and you bring them on when you're short. So the strategies around using the cheapest water when you've got it, and then supplementing with more expensive water when you have to. Yep.
Yeah. Perhaps the other question we haven't dealt with then really around that is putting a weir on the Upland Street as you referred to it. Does that creek have a name? Does anyone know?
I think it's Waging Creek.
It is
That's what I called it anyway.
You call it that? We'll go with that anyway, the Waging Creek.
That's what my map showed.
I don't think we own any of it effectively, my understanding, so if we were to try to put a
Only
weir
this
on,
first bit, only.
just right here,
Yeah, to the upland.
which is sort of the upper edge of the street catchment, isn't it? So you're not going to get a lot off the streets if you put it up at the upper end of the catchment. This is a challenge.
But the Waging Creek goes way back.
It does,
Yeah, it goes way
Yeah,
back.
and I think we'd be a little at risk of the salinity content if we just rely on runoff from upstream.
Yeah, but I was curious whether or not the salinity will be lower than what the groundwater is. Because if it's lower, then you've got some options. Because you could be treating it through your desal plant, you could be putting it back in the ground for storage, and supplementing the groundwater system that way. So if it was fresh, you'd just take it straight out, but
Yeah.
if it's probably going to be brackish, you'd expect it would be. But it's how brackish it is.
Yeah.
If it's really salty, then that limits your options a lot, but if it's less than the groundwater, then you have a whole bunch of options where you can maybe harvest that water and use it.
Yeah, because again, with that supply, it's then about the plumbing to get it to where we want it to. Tick, tick, tick.
Pass the
You
roll.
could pump it.
We can make it
There's a
work.
pipe just there. You could pump it back up to the dam.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so there's options. All right, councillors?
Water use efficiency on our behalf was the only other thing that I had in mind. Look, I haven't seen that in there, but is that something we should be looking at as well?
Oh, yeah, there's some easy wins with some water controllers because they're all on timer based at the moment. I didn't look at all the irrigation sprinklers efficiency and all, that's kind of a separate study. But for sure there'll be some advantages, you know, it's probably 10 or 15%. When you get controllers and your irrigation sprinklers and everything efficient. And, you know, reducing evaporation on your dams is a water efficiency measure as well. Yeah, so all those things, I'd imagine there's probably 20% on all that, which is
Helps.
useful, yes, yep, for sure.
No, very interesting.
All right, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Good report, and we'll deal with it when we get to that in our agenda.
Great, so I didn't get too comfortable, Chair.
It was going all right, too.
That's the
No, no.
Yeah.
Didn't allow for dollars per litre.
All right, that being item 4, councillors, we'll move on to item 5, which is disclosure of interests. And we have one. You can read that.
Okay, so I have a declaration of impartial interest from the Shire President, Councillor Blight. Item 8.2.5, which is related to the request for fee waiver for the Town Hall Hire Stay on Your Feet program. The nature and extent of the interest is my mother is a participant.
Yes. Any other disclosures of interest? There being none, I'll go on to item 6, being confirmation of the previous meeting minutes, and in particular the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held Tuesday 27th of May. Moving, councillor Chilcott.
I am.
Thank you. Second, councillor Kilpatrick. Is there any discussion of those minutes? Any dissent on the motion? I shall declare that carried. Announcements by the President. I think we'll skip that. Most of what I've done in this last month, in fact, the CEO has also recorded in his documentation, other than perhaps the meeting we did have this morning with Department of Planning, were they? Which was all around renewable energy rollout, if you like, and trying to get a, what's the word they were using, a new code?
Code, yeah.
Do you want to take up the position?
Sure, so at the same session where the Minister for Energy announced the benefits guideline, which will be presented at the next council meeting for comment from council, the Minister for Planning indicated that the Department of Planning was going to be developing a renewable energies planning code, which effectively would form part of every local government's planning scheme. And so when renewable energy developments go through the 11 Part 11B state planning process, they would be assessed in accordance with this new code. They're running a bit of a meet and greet with local governments in our part of the world and asking us about what we think about renewables and some various questions on that space. And obviously the Shire President and I talked about the many things that have been talked in this place. From their perspective, the timetable is that they're hoping to have something available for public comment by the end of the year, which is a long time. We're already seeing renewable energy developments being approved in our neighbouring shire at Narrabeen, and in the absence of a code, that does leave the state and the wider community exposed from a planning perspective. So we look forward to the production of that code, but I fear that it may be too late, if not too little.
Possibly both, yeah. But if nothing else, they have come consulted, and they are, when they release the document, looking for further input, potentially. We'll see how that plays out. All right, we'll move on. We're at item 8, at least. And the monthly financial report. There's a recommendation that council receive the report for the period ending 31st of May. Councillor Ball's moved, Councillor Longer seconds. Manager of Finance, is there anything you need to expand upon?
Not really, thank you, Mr. President. I will mention that we did receive our financial assistance grants early payment.
We have it already?
Today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to write down how much it was, and I got to, but I think it was about 1.5.
Really?
From memory.
Wow. 50%?
Yes, yes, yeah. Although not 50% of our, they've paid early 50% of the total contribution to Western Australia, but that's split up, so it's not 50% of our contribution, it's an overall 50%.
Right.
So, I can work out, take that on notice and work out what exact percentage it is of our grants.
I think it'll be in the budgetary figures anyway. If we need to work it out, we can.
Yes, but yes, that, was in the bank today.
Good, I think.
Nice surprise for you.
Through the chair, I'm sure it had nothing to do with the ALGA conference being on this week.
I think that all councillors received an email from someone going to ALGA once again pushing the barrow about financial assistance grants and the fact that we get them early and confuses everybody. No, maybe just myself. Okay. Anyway, suffice to say, the main thrust of it really was to try to increase the financial assistance grants to a level that's more sustainable for local governments. But we're not going to ALGA, so we won't be voting at this stage. All right, so questions to the Manager of Finance? There are none. I have a motion to receive the report. Is there any dissent on the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried 6-0. Someone tell
Page
me.
51.
Thank you. Page 51. Yes, schedule of payments for the month of May, 8.1.2. It's a recommendation that council receive the list of accounts components under delegated authority. Councillor Kilpatrick has moved. Councillor Ball seconds. Once again, any questions of those accounts? All had the opportunity. No. Is there any dissent on the motion? Clearly that carried. Again, 6-0. Item 8.1.3 on page 57. CEO's report. It's a recommendation the council notes the report. Councillor Ball has moved. Councillor Chilcott seconds. Mr. CEO, anything you need to expand upon?
No, thank you, both.
Questions of the CEO's report? Why lightly? Any dissent on the motion? Should clear that carried, 6-0. Water security. 8.1.4 on page 70 as a recommendation on the screen as well as on your screens.
Yes, I'm happy to move as written.
Thank you. Councillor Ball has moved on the recommendation. That's a Chilcott. Second. CEO, anything further?
Sure, we're as well received, right? No question, no, nothing further data than,
It's confusing.
we're confused about that.
Probably not. Run the spell checker over that one quickly.
Yes, it's wrong.
I thought E, except after this.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. You're the only one that picked it up. If there is no questions, any dissent on the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried, 6-0. Next item will be...
134.
Sorry?
134.
I couldn't find it. Yes,
And then
okay.
we have a
8.1.5.
motion that came in from the President, change to that policy.
I did, yes, share that with all council, it's just a slight rewording that, to my mind, made it a little clearer that by default they were, resident chose to be on the Nosebray register, then they are by default taking ownership of their patch of the road verge. So it's a slight adjustment to the actual wording of the policy. The policy document said that, paraphrase, that residents who elect to be placed on the no spray register assume responsibility for. Councillor,
I'm happy to move with the amendment
as written there.
as written.
Thank you, Councillor Chilcott. Give me a moment to get your head around what I'm saying.
I've got a question. Just, there was no notion in there, I didn't see of any time frame at all. Would in this sort of policy, should there be a review at a period of time?
The policy reviewed or the
Oh,
decision?
the register, probably the register property. People change houses, things change.
Okay.
We've got a lot of new owners in town as well.
They can capture it within the policy or within the...
Yeah, I might refer to, ask the manager of works how it operated in the shires where they've worked elsewhere. That they had, was there something that they checked up on occasionally, or was it the case that we kind of knew, we were a small enough town to know that someone that was on the register had moved out of town, or?
Yeah, when the other shires I've worked at, and this one here, if someone doesn't want their verge sprayed, for example, and they shift, you know that you can spray it because they're gone. Yeah, you just, it's only a small
But there was
place.
no official
No, there was no register in it.
register of that process.
No.
Fair point. Mr. CEO, do you wish to, we could amend this policy at the next council meeting?
Oh, yeah.
So do we put the policy in place and make that amendment, or do we fine tune the policy and bring it back to the next council meeting?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously up for the council's determination. I think that I think the policy as it stands, I think that it's a well-made point in terms of the checks that we would have in place if we were to include a line in the policy that said that if a person departs the Shire, they're to advise the Shire of their departure, but that's not necessarily people aren't going to do that.
No.
So I'm not sure what if it's that that person remains on the no spray register for a period of 3 years and then they have to renew it. It could be another way of achieving that. If council wanted to set a what they thought was a fair and reasonable renewal period as part of the policy, that would also be another mechanism to do it.
I think that it's already in there because it says residents. It's talking specifically about the resident, not the property.
So if they leave town, they're no longer a
That's
resident,
right.
you're saying. Okay. Councillor West has a question.
Mr. President, could we move this to a forum? To a further discussion, then
We can lay on the table, but I guess the vegetation spraying is sort of what we do soon. Am I right,
Yeah.
Mr. Works Manager? So sort of, it's an active issue right now. My feel is that we create a policy and fine tune it if you wish to afterwards. So,
I think it's already answered because it says the residents, so the
Okay.
minute they move, they're
All
not
right.
residents anymore.
all right, let me go on then. We do have a mover of the motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ball, thank you. And Mr. CEO, we can have a look at it.
Oh, we can look at it any time that the council wishes. I think that, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
If I receive feedback about the policy, which as the officers report notes, we would suspect that we've all received feedback at various stages about
Yeah,
the policy. We can take that back to council at a
yeah,
later stage.
okay. All right, so that is the motion. Do I have any dissent on the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. We'll see how that plays out. Okay, item 8.1.6, the Walga AGM and Convention 2025, and you've read the document, there's a recommendation there. I'm comfortable to go along as a delegate. I did text Mr. Councillor at least Longmuir. What are you thinking?
Sure, yep.
You're prepared to go along with the delegate?
Yeah, is the itinerary already done?
It is, apparently.
All right.
I haven't read it yet.
For the benefit of the council, I do have fresh off the press, literally this afternoon, Welga has published the initial schedule, albeit that all the keynote speakers and presenters are announced close to the date with some razzmatazz, so
Yep.
the core dates are in
They're
there.
not presenting till the second day, so you're right.
As you well know, I can waffle, I mean.
Okay, so we have two delegates at this stage. I did also approach Councillor O'Brien, but she's not here to defend herself. But I did hear Councillor Kilpatrick, you're not going to be in our presence.
No, I won't be in the country.
You'll be out of the country. So for the deputy delegate's position is open to speculation, or we don't have to fill it.
We do not.
Time frame for that, Mr. CEO?
For making a determination?
Yep.
Soon, which is why I took it to this campaign.
Something like Councillor O'Brien not to have responded. So, I can't divulge her thinking either way.
I would observe that the recommendation that's currently there would not prevent, as I understand it, it does not prevent any councillor from actually attending the convention, but actually, because the part 3 talks about resolves to pay for the costs of any elected member wishing to attend, so if Councillor O'Brien, or any other councillor for that matter, later comes and says we want to attend the conference, that resolution gives us the power to do so. It's just simply the voting rights for the AGM.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we have, okay, item 1 has been filled, so councillors, I'm in your hands. Councillor prepared to move in that direction. Mr. Chilcott,
I'm prepared to move,
as written.
yes.
Okay, do I have a seconder? No one, so I should have asked, is there any volunteers for the third spot before we?
Councillor O'Brien the opportunity.
Pardon?
I'd like to see Councillor O'Brien given the opportunity.
Yes, me too.
I must say that was my thinking, but all right, we'll go with that. All right.
She can't say no.
That didn't actually form part of the motion that we were about to vote on, I have to say, so.
You could say Councillor O'Brien pending
What your motion
acceptance.
do you wish to?
Yeah, I would say Councillor O'Brien pending acceptance.
Okay.
Then we're not putting her in it, we're just saying it's open if
Offering.
you want to.
Find out if she reads the minutes.
Offering. Okay.
Mr. President, sorry, for the benefit of the council, while it is on this notice paper, the date for finalising voting delegates is actually not until the 8th of September, which is a lot later than it normally is, I believe. Feels a lot later than it normally is anyway.
Does feel like it. All right. Well, we have a motion now. Do I get a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kilpatrick. I thought I did see that. That being the case, is there any dissent on the motion? I shall declare that carried 6-0. Unless I've missed something, we're on to item 8.2.1, Deputy CEO's report. There's a recommendation of council notes to report. Thank you, Councillor Ball has moved, and the seconder. Councillor Kilpatrick, thank you. Mr Deputy, is there anything you need to expand upon?
No, I don't think so, thanks, Mr President.
Okay, thank you. Questions, the Deputy? I think, just by way of noting, I think the budget workshop was a good event and well received by councillors, so well done, Mr Deputy.
Good. And credit to the manager of finance.
She wasn't here, but yes. well
My
done.
apologies.
No, it did.
For
Unfortunately.
preparing most of the documentation.
Yeah, certainly. Work in progress as well. All right, if there is no questions and no dissent on the motion, I declare that carried. 6-0. Item 8.2.2, differential rates. See, you were going to update this document to some degree. Did we get to that?
Yes, there's a
Mr President, there is two alternative motions on, I guess you could say. One of them is the version that essentially is the same philosophy as what we had in the council workshop, which was 3.75% increase in rates, $775 minimum rate, and a 70% discount in year one to the two new commercial GRV properties. There has been a suggestion today that maybe that discount be wound back a bit to 60%. So we have two options available depending on which way the council wishes to proceed. So the alternative motion in front of us is the 60% discount option. So that possibly just evens out a discount over a 3-year period to the two new GRV properties. There is really no impact in sort of net rates raised, but there is a bit of a difference in the actual discounts to the landholders. So with the original
option that we were talking about at the budget meeting of the 70% discount, the total discount is 45,471. The 60% discount, the option talked about today, is 38,882. So in terms of impact on the rest of the rate base, the 70%, given that the current sort of situation with minimums is that we would be applying a minimum rate that's about 15%, given it's going from 675 to 775. So that sort of softens out a rate increase on all the non-minimums. So for that option we were talking about the other night, the average increase for everyone else is 2.35%. So if we wind back the discount to 60%, the average increase to non-minimums is 2.11%. So there's a bit of variation in that, in particular amongst UV properties, because UVs, get a revaluation this year.
Yeah.
So, but that would be the average across the board. Is so not a huge difference in those two proposals.
All right. Keeping in mind this is an advertising process, we're not actually setting the rate at this stage. It's subject to change, or can be changed. I'll rephrase that slightly. So it's merely an advertising process of what we're thinking, what our best proposal is. And there's two options on the table. There were two other options sent to you via email.
Yes, I saw those.
Which I felt may not be palatable, but I'm not sure what others thought of those.
Mr. President, can I ask a question to you,
Yes.
please? In these options, can we put a percentage increase of what they reflect? In other words...
Can you rephrase, please?
What's that?
Can you try again? What do you mean?
Well, on these options here, you've got minimum payments going from, I think, 650 something or up to 775, which is a realisation of 15% increase.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to. Can we put the realisation of the percentage increase into this motion? Because people don't understand rates in the dollar, etc., etc. All this rate in the dollar doesn't mean anything to me, but the percentage increase does. I'm just asking the question.
Yes, you could, but it may not actually result in the change. So the minimum payment increase is a simple increase. It's a simple increase of 15%. For the other categories, you could put in the rate in the dollar increase as a percentage, but it would not be what a person is actually getting as their rates increase because of the changes in the valuation,
Okay.
particularly for the UV part of it. And so your results might vary. Objects in the mirror may be larger than they really are. A person, the average person, even if it's even a mathematically correct term, but on average, it's going to increase the yield by that amount. But because of the valuations change, a person's rates might go up or down or stay the same. And so while you could add that in there, it actually won't inform the public anymore and may confuse them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a complex document. All right, councillors, so you have some options before you. How do you wish to progress? That's all.
I'd like to move with the, as written in the agenda, with a 70% discount.
Okay. The original, as was written in the agenda.
So just a minute, Tagger, I just want to confirm we've got the correct one that we're working on there.
Although the
Amy?
figures will slightly
70%.
change.
Is that 70%?
Yeah, that's the one, just,
Correct.
what was that, Mr Deputy?
Well, I was just mentioning that when we originally published the agenda, we indicated that we were still actually finalising the rates in a dollar because we had to run some checks between the spreadsheet and Synergysoft. So there is some tweaking of the rates in the dollar, but the philosophy is the same. So that is the amended version that you would have up there.
Yeah, okay, I can see that in our agenda, it's sorry, 9.42 for the GRV, and that's saying 9.5.
So in the, originally, when we were working on it, there was some, in the testing, we found some properties that were, incorrectly assessed, and there were some shy properties as well. So all the figures slightly amended when I could compare what Synergy Soft was actually going to charge. So once I did that, then I can verify the rates in the dollar, and that's what we'll get if we run this scenario.
In that case, Mr. President, I should alter the fact that that is what I'm after rather than this.
Yeah, that will be what is recorded as if we make the determination that that's your motion, Councillor Ball.
Second.
Seconded, Councillor Kilpatrick. All right, that being the case, and once again, Mr. CEO, this is merely for advertisement,
Very much for advertising.
not setting the rates at this stage.
And
It's-
the council is required to consider any submissions received and have due consideration of them when setting them.
Right, looking for public comment.
That's right.
Okay, is there any dissent on the motion? Yes, question?
So I understand that Gilmac has not been assessed yet, or not finished being assessed, is that where that's up to?
Not part of the GRV process, I still use it.
Well, my
yeah.
question is, when their assessment is finalised, will they have a similar step entry towards their full rateable value, or will they sort
Go
of,
straight, yeah.
depending on when that happens?
Yeah, so we applied to the minister. The minister makes a determination of that. In the course of the minister making the determination, there's inevitably a dialogue between the department and shire officers about the commencement time for that. We have to first get over the hurdle that the minister is going to agree to make that changeover. Once we establish that, the department will come to us and ask us when we want the changeover to occur. In practice, officers would set a time frame for that changeover that enables council to consider it, but also we would need to get a valuation, the formal valuation process done, confirmed through the Value General, because it may very well be the minister doesn't do it for another 6 months, 8 months and the like, and it may be that we hold it over until the changeover for the budget. What I would say is that officers would make sure that a UV to GRV translation did not result in an interim rates going to that entity without council consideration about a discounted rate.
Is it fair, well, I guess what I'm asking, is it fair on Unigrain, or is it fair on the others? Just because Gilmac's valuation has been, or assessment has been delayed. I'm just wondering how we treat them all the same, given the change in time of their assessment. Do they start on a 3-year course towards 100% rates when their assessment is done, or is it backdated to when the others started? And
Yeah, fair question.
It is, to be honest, Councillor, a little bit of a hypothetical, because we don't know whether the minister will actually approve that changeover, and they may not. And so all we can do is make the applications that we have and have the minister make those determinations, and then the future rating decisions of council are those decisions. There are those 3 properties were identified as ones where officers and council believe that the changeover should occur. The assessment was made on 2 of those properties quicker than one by the department, and as a result, that's the ratings that we have. This is a process to achieve rating equity and reduce inequality, which has been for a number of reasons existing in the Shire for some time, and will probably continue to exist in various forms for some time, to be honest.
You could be right, yep. All right, so by way of process, Councillor Long, are you dissenting the motion?
No.
Or just querying the,
it was just a question.
okay,
Not, yeah.
yep, that's fine, I just need to understand where we're at in the debate, if you like. Is there any dissent on the motion? Okay, it's kind of interesting because I do have a dissenting voice, if you like, on the motion. So I'll put it to Councillor Ball to speak to the motion.
You've gone through quite a process to get to this point. I think it's, originally I was speaking for a 50% of the assessed rate for those businesses, but have reflected that an easier in may well be more acceptable straight up. So just the general rate, and speaking to the motion on the minimum payments, they're vacant blocks that are going to affect really anyone kicking them out of their house or having them eating baked beans instead of steak. I really haven't got anything else to add to that, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kilpatrick?
Oh, yeah, look, I'm happy with the motion and minimum rates I think are probably set and probably realistic, and with the reduction to the two businesses, I think that's a fair step in the process. It's a fair jump from where they have been to where they are. So,
Yeah.
good businesses in town.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And look, I don't disagree with any of that. I just needed and wish to raise the point that we are also in this process of putting a UV commercial energy and generation and storage category. And what I know with that is, were that to come to fruition in any way, shape or form, most of the costs to council of an energy generation facility will already have been met by the time the facility is actually creating energy. Most of the costs are in CEO's time, planning, and a whole raft of other issues have already passed by the time that the devices will actually be operating. So we would then be effectively bound by our own process of phasing in these rate changes. And these rate changes to facilitate our costs, and those costs have already passed in the case of the energy creation. So we may be setting a bad precedent for ourselves, I guess is where I'm going with a phase-in process, unless we do it a bit sharper.
May I ask a question?
Food for thought in a moment if you can.
Yes.
And I raise that with you because genuinely we're advertising this, we're not setting the rate right now. So it's just something to keep in mind. Councillor?
Will the point about the discount be mentioned in the advertisement?
CEO?
Mr. President, not in the actual advertisement, but it is mentioned in the commentary, in the objects and reasons, if anyone would care to analyse that.
The other part of that, for the chair, is that at the budget workshop, we asked a very reasonable question about whether the two entities had been contacted about their likely rates. I drafted a letter but did not send a letter last week indicating a number, but felt it was important that we actually get through tonight's meeting to set some parameters from council's indications as a formal resolution, rather than just the discussions at a forum.
That's where we are.
That's where we are, yes.
All right. I'll just ask quickly, are there any speakers in favour of the recommendation? Speakers against? Councillor Ball in closing?
Just one small point on the commercial energy generation and storage. I believe we're limited to the increase we can put on those above the unimproved values without going to the minister. I think that's something like double, which is a very small increase in monetary terms. which I appreciate the point about precedent, but I think they're separate issues that we're not dealing with a great deal of difference in the pocket.
All right, thank you.
Just got
That being
one-
the
no,
case,
that's just one question.
Councillor West?
This is just purely for advertising.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, we're not setting the rates tonight.
Yep.
We're suggesting, but not setting.
No, as long as this is just for advertising, that's fine.
Yep. All right, councillors, you've heard the closing argument. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? 5 and 1, carried. We shall move on. Next item being,
Page 156, the home care.
oh yes, 8.2.3 home care refund of unspent. Now, you did hear about this at the budget workshop, councillors, so it's fairly straightforward. Councillor Ball, you're moving on the recommendation. Councillor Kilpatrick, seconds. Is there any questions? Any dissent? I shall declare that carried. 6 of us, there is 6 and 0. 8.4, 2.4, on the right page. I am proposed CAT local law. Now, there's a recommendation there, just I'd ask the question of the CEO, being a local law, this is a process, isn't it?
It is a process with a capital. Yes.
It is a process. Not guaranteed.
No, and certainly the deputy and I have had quite a few conversations about the potential makeup of a CAT local law. I'm not sure whether it's in the officer's report, but I can add to council's interest that obviously when you make a local law, it has to get assessed by the Joint Standing Committee on Delegated Legislation. They require about 30% of local laws to be amended. So 1 in 3 local laws that local governments pass on any number of topics are required by that committee to go back to that local government for amendment, which again, it basically involves going back for advertising again. I don't know what the number that CAT local laws require to go through that process, but I reckon it's much even higher than that 30%. This is, while I think it is a good local law, it is a vanilla local law that we are attempting to deal with the least amount of pain in terms of getting it through the Joint Standing Committee Delegated Legislation, so we can deal with a number of pressing issues, which is the number of cats that people are permitted to have.
Yep. All right, so you've heard the explanation, councillors. There's a recommendation. You're moving, councillor?
I am moving.
Gilcott, thank you. Do I have a second there? Councillor Longmire. All right. Some explanation. You look a little disturbed, Councillor Kilpatrick.
Oh, no, not disturbed.
All right, I'll ask, is there any dissent on the motion? As I said, it is a process before us. If there is no dissent, I shall declare that carried absolutely. Where was the next item?
169.
Okay. On page 169, 8.2.5, the request for fee waiver, stay on your feet. Councillor Chalker?
I wish to support this. I actually went along to the Stay on Your Feet at the invitation of the ladies that run it. And they are squeezed into this tiny little area. I did take a photo which I emailed to Amy, but I'm not sure if she got it or has access to it on her emails.
So first of all, you're moving on the
I am
recommendation?
moving, yes,
Okay.
and supporting it because they don't, there was 25 people there when I was there.
Yeah.
15 were absent. 40 squeezed into their current facility. It was jam-packed.
It's a little more.
Very much so.
All right. You've heard the explanation, councillors. Councillor Paul has second. And if you recall, I did declare an interest on this item. Is there any dissent on the motion? I shall declare that carried, 6 and 0. Being no dissent.
171.
On page 171,
Item 8.2.6, the Wage and Youth Centre, request a sublease. Mr CEO, anything you wish to add?
No, I don't know if Deputy CEO wants to add anything.
No, thanks, Mr. President, pretty straightforward.
Okay, my question earlier was, do we have sufficient tools in the lease that we have with the Wage and Youth Centre? I believe we do. So this is a sublease.
That's correct, yes.
Councillor prepared to move. Thank you. Councillor Kilpatrick. Councillor Longmire. Councillor Ball, question?
Just no, is there a time limit on this? I just can't see one.
It would be, Mr. President, for the extent of the actual head lease, so, yeah, 10 years from 2021. Well, from now to 2031.
Right. All right, any further questions? Any dissent on the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried 6-0. And a similar lease document extending the lease at least, 8.2.7 on page 172.
Yes, we just, it's post the agenda publication, tend to like that we probably should have a point 2 there, just to gain clear authority to, the Sheriff President and Chief Executive Officer fix the common seal as required to those documents consistent with our other leasing resolutions.
Yep, okay, so slightly amended to your document in front of you. Councillor Kilpatrick has moved, Councillor Longmire second. Is there any questions? Dissent on the motion? Should declare that carried, 6-0. Last but not least, once again, 8.2.8, extend the lease of the childcare facility. With the same added second dot point, Mr. CEO.
That's correct, yes.
Moving, Councillor Ball. Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Kilpatrick. Questions? Term of the lease as well. If there are no questions, is there any dissent? Councillor West, you look very disturbed. You're right.
Yep.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? None against. I'll take that as carried. Yes. Absolutely. Okay, moving along, we have a motion, at least, recommendation with regard to the Manager of Works Activity Report. A motion that we note the report. Councillor Ball has moved. Councillor Longmire the seconds. Mr. Works Manager, you've had some time off,
Yeah, I have.
so you should.
But not long enough.
That's always the way. Anything you wish to add?
Just the maintenance grading, we're up the eastern side of the shire at the moment, and I reckon about a week and a half, the roads have all been graded once, so we're gonna start back in the wet area on the western side of the shire.
I hope you got a tow rope.
So we'll start back down there, because I went for a drive out there a couple of days ago, and some of the roads out there, they're doing good. So we'll start again down there and come through in between showers. The curbing has all been laid around Lucan Street, Thornton and Trenton, and that's all been backfilled and sorted out. The main drain down here, we've put one section of concrete wall in, and we just poured the other section today. So with that 20 grand, we haven't got enough to do another one, so we'll see how we go, but it's looking good down there. We do a little bit each year when I can. Yeah.
Right.
Apart from that, everything else, just is doing a few odd jobs and running things up to the end of the financial year,
Most of your tasks have been completed for some time?
except for the carryovers.
Yeah. Okay. All right, questions, Manager of Works? I
do note in there, you've written that repairs to culverts.
We're still fixing them up.
So, are these new repairs to old culverts or repairs that you knew you known for a while?
I've known for a while, a lot of them are grader drivers damage.
Oh.
Where they cut the road and they cut the top off the pipe just out on the table drain.
Oh.
So we've got to fix them up. I've got another one. I've seen another one the other day out on the way to Wickepin Road, which I've got to go and fix now.
Right.
So it's when they grade the road and they just rip the top, because the old fibro ones,
Yeah.
rip the top clean off.
Yeah, not as much fill over
Yeah,
the,
that wears out until they put
Yeah.
it all back up again.
yeah, I see.
But I might just relay that the deputy president, the deputy CEO and the manager of works did have a meeting regarding the Wheatbelt secondary freight network as well, and that will be the subject of a future report to council. Obviously, we took some feedback at previous forum about that, and that meeting has happened, and there'll be a future report to council about whether we should invest in that program.
Okay. Good, good. All right, anything further?
The only other one was, I got a quote on the hot mix, which I've given to the CEO to do the basketball court.
Oh, yeah.
That was in the forum.
Yeah.
I didn't go colour, because I was a bit scared, but I just went black, and it's about $51,000 to cover that court, the whole lot.
Oh, basketball courts.
Yeah, and that's 30 mil thick, that's what they do on that. or
That was hot
basketball.
mix?
Yeah.
Hot mix, yes,
2 courts, 1 court?
both.
Right.
Yep, and that's allowing 600 mil past your playing area, you know, that white line?
Yeah.
Because they've got a profile at the side, so there's no sort of steps there.
Yeah.
So they'll sweep it and profile it and sweep it, and then just do an emulsion over it and redo it.
Including profiling.
Yeah.
Over 2 courts, it's not too bad.
That's the whole area.
Yeah, okay. That's worse.
Are you, have you requested a colour or is it straight black?
No, I just got black.
Straight black.
I can get a colour if you like.
But it adds, does it?
Oh, yeah, you probably need on double that.
Red.
Yeah, oxide's pretty deep, yeah.
But we should know what it
Yeah, I'll
is.
find out.
Yeah,
It'd
I reckon.
be good to
Yep.
get a difference.
Yeah.
All right.
May I also, another question is would we be able to get green in the Keyway? I'm just asking.
I'm not sure, I'll have to ask them.
Paint.
Mm.
Paint.
Yeah.
I think paint would be the go on that one.
Just asking.
Yeah,
All right. Bring that back to the budgeting process.
yeah.
All right. Further questions of the Works Manager's report? There being none, I do have a motion that we note the report. Is there any dissent? I should have declared that carried. You have finished, I take it? I should have asked before I went there. All right, we'll move along, councillors. Item 9, motions which previous notice has been given.
There are nil.
There are nil. Questions by members which due notice has been given.
No.
Also nil. Urgent business.
I believe there's any.
Don't have any of those also. We have one item of confidential business, item 12. So that being the case, I'll take a motion that we close the meeting to the general public. Councillor Chilcott has moved. Do I have a second? Councillor West. So we'll just do that. Scott, briefly, we will be very quickly, Mr. CEO,
Wait
like,
for a second. Maybe you give me just a minute. So the meeting's going to go behind closed doors. The council has asked me to invite you to stay around for a beverage.
that being the case, it is the last item on the agenda, item 13, being closure of the meeting. There being no further, Mr. CEO, I shall declare the meeting closed at 8:30, 28.